Hello, everybody. Thank you for joining us for today's episode of Meet the Agent. My name is Alan Perez. I work with the media and content team here at Set Schedule. And joining me today is Marge Bennett, a real estate veteran of 20 years working in the Southwest Florida market with a specific emphasis on the Fort Myers area. Marge currently works with the Remax Realty Group, and I would say she's just a pleasure to speak with. Thank you so much for joining us this morning. Marge, how are you doing today?
Great. Thank you, Alan.
I'm glad to hear it. And so, to give a little bit of context to everybody, because obviously I know why you're great, but could you give a little bit of background into how it is that you got started into real estate and what your current passions are in real estate?
Okay. I started in real estate back, I guess I took the first class in 82, and then I never took the state exam because of situations. Um, and then I got a job as an investigator with the Division of Real Estate. Um, they wanted us to take the salesperson's course and said, you can get your license if you want. Then I got promoted to supervisor and moved to Fort Myers and was able to get my broker's license. Of course, not active, but and then when they reorganized, I said, well, we've always talked about what we want to do when we grow up and in the office. And my passion was always be a realtor.
Fantastic. And I mean, again, the avenue that you took to get into real estate, I would say, isn't necessarily as conventional as most people. What benefits or what insights were you able to gain in your initial work as it was an investigator, you said, correct?
Yes.
When you were working as an investigator, what insights and information were you able to gather that helped you strengthen yourself as a real estate agent?
Well, obviously knowing the law and the rules. I also had training in appraisals, which helps a great deal. And I obviously took the pre-licensing classes for brokers and a salesperson, so I knew what that teaches. And just having talked to so many agents and brokers over the years. It all sort of gelled.
Yeah.
This
And
is
so,
what you do. This is what you do not do.
exactly. And I mean, again, that's something that I found in more of our strong agents, I guess I would say, is having that experience where you've previously dealt with home shoppers or with real estate agents or with brokers even, and to realize, okay, there is some mismatch, some miscommunication here. I mean, when we encounter those circumstances, what would you chalk it up to when there's a miscommunication or a realtor and their prospect, they're not on the same page, so to speak?
Sometimes it's a matter of being from different, let's say, societies, where one person interprets things this way and another person interprets them completely different.
Mm-hmm.
And you just have to find that middle ground where you understand each other.
How is it that you avoid that miscommunication to begin with? Because again, like I've mentioned, something that I very much appreciate about your style as a realtor is that you're very, very empathetic, that you like to put yourself into your prospect's shoes, I believe you
Sure.
mentioned previously.
Just listen to them, ask questions, get them to talk about what they want, why they want, how they want.
Fantastic. Yeah. And that's part of really getting them excited. I mean, so to take a step back here, and this is something that I very much like to discuss with just about every agent that I speak with, is to know, how do you actually open the conversation? How do you get the most out of those initial 15 seconds or 10 seconds when you make the call or when they respond to the text? How is it that you're best able to keep that conversation going long term?
Trying to find out what they want. Why are you calling me? Can I help you buy a place, sell a place.
And then going from there, right? And then usually, I mean, and I think that you illustrated it very well here in the presentation, is that you do have to give that pause. You have to give that space for the person that you're speaking to actually respond. I mean, we've definitely, and I've seen it go both ways. But a lot of the time, when you have that first conversation, again, in my understanding, it might not even be the best time for that prospect. Have you had those circumstances where you get on a call for the first time and they tell you, no, I'm not interested, or no, call me back later, and then later on you end up transacting with them?
Uh, I've had a couple of those, yes.
And so, in your mind or through your experience, what would you say causes that to happen? I mean, why is it that these prospects, these potential clients, tell the agents, right, I'm not necessarily interested now, but then they do go on to transact later on?
Well, often, um, at least our company says that there's frequently like a 6 month time period between, okay, I'm starting to look,
Mm-hmm.
and okay, I'm ready to make an offer. So there's a nurturing time during that.
Okay. And in your experience, what is it that the home shoppers are usually going through in that time period, in that nurturing phase?
Making sure they have down payment money. If they're first time home buyers, getting qualified for those programs, uh, making sure they can get approved for a loan, maybe fixing some things on their credit,
Mm-hmm.
um, just getting ready to move.
Yeah. And I mean, like you mentioned, it can come with I guess, a backlog of additional tasks that come with it, right? Making sure that your finances are in order, that you're able to qualify for that down payment or the loan that you'd be getting after you're able to pull together your down payment. Um, what is it that, I mean, again, in your connections and in your conversations with these prospects, when you encounter someone that's, at the very beginning of what could be seen as kind of a longer journey, what is it that you're able to do or would recommend doing to make sure that they don't fall off in that process? Because, I mean, we hear it all the time, right? I got them in touch with my lender, but the lender called them and they never heard back from the prospect. Or, the prospect said they would call me on Friday, but I didn't really hear back. How do we make sure that that interest and that intent doesn't fizzle out later on?
Well, if you don't get the call back, you might make another call and see, what's going on. Did you forget? Did you just get too busy?
Mhm.
And things happen.
So it does come down really to the communication aspect, though, right? I mean,
Absolutely.
until you hear from them, you want to continue to follow up.
Right.
Um, okay, great. And I mean, actually, that makes a lot of sense to me, because even in our regular lives, right? For example, I mean, I don't know if it happens for you, Marge, but for me, definitely, sometimes I'll sign up for some sort of text alert, right? Maybe it's that I went to the chiropractor and they're trying to get me to
Mm-hmm.
come back. Um, and even though I don't necessarily act on the text messages that are telling me to set an appointment and set an appointment and set an appointment, I keep them on. I do. I like to have those messages and have that in my back pocket to know, this is something that I do want to do long term. I do want to go see the chiropractor more. And so I do like to have in my back pocket that avenue to go in and actually do so. Um, I mean, again, in my understanding, that's really the best thing that we can do with our nurturing, with our text message and our email follow-ups. Is that right? Is that what you do with your business?
Yes.
Okay. And on top of that, something that we discuss with a lot of agents, and there are, varying opinions on it. I mean, when you have a drip campaign or a follow-up cadence, what kind of information do you send? Because we do have some agents who they'll just set up a kind of a broad search on the MLS and continuously send properties to the prospect's email and consider that a drip campaign. What are your thoughts? Does that count? Does that not count as a drip campaign?
I mean, that counts, but especially if they are not actively looking. Um, my company has drip campaigns all planned out that
Mm-hmm.
we can um, personalize if we want. But for a buyer, it's figuring out what you really want, what you really need, what you can really afford, um, where you really want to be. That's those kind of things. For a seller, getting your home ready to show, um, preparing for pictures, which is a big thing. I mean, you do not want professional pictures with dirty dishes in the sink. Um, it just and the bed unmade. Do you
Has that
really
happened a
want
couple of
your
times?
home?
No, I mean,
You
I
want
definitely
everybody
agree.
in the world to see your house that way. Uh, have a little pride.
Mhm. Yeah, I mean, and at the same time, it's also having that forethought, right? Having the realtor that knows to say, look, let's take a quick second and let's just cross our T's and dot our I's to make sure that everything looks the way that I feel comfortable letting you present your home. Would
Yes,
you say? Fantastic. And actually, so going back to what you mentioned, because knowing, like you said, right, kind of deciding what it is that I, as a buyer, especially if I'm a first-time buyer, what I'm as a buyer am interested in is really the I guess I would say the biggest part of the homework, right? How would you recommend that buyers, especially first-time buyers, figure out what it is that they are actually looking for and what will benefit them the most in the long term?
I think looking at their lifestyle. Are they homebodies? Do they like to garden? Do they have a dog that needs a fenced yard? Do do they like to tinker on their car? Well, there's a lot of places where you can't do that if you don't have a garage to do it in. Um, Stuff like that.
For me, in the near future, I will be considering, starting to buy or potentially planning to buy a starter home. And it's always the great unknown, right? To say, what does that process actually look like? And I mean, I think that you hit it on the head very well, right? Figuring out and looking at my lifestyle, or again, at the buyer's lifestyle specifically, so that we know what is it that they need, because it very much is a case by case basis, wouldn't you say?
Absolutely.
And switching gears here a little bit on the seller side, right? Because for the buyers, it very much is, what is it that I want and what is then attainable or possible, realistic with what I'm looking for. On the seller side, what would you say? Well, again, like we just discussed, right? Making sure that the property is show ready, that you can, take pictures and have people over. What are some other things that sellers should do in the process as they ramp up to getting ready to sell?
If they're smokers, do everything they can to get that smoke smell out of the house. Because I've had prospective buyers go into a listing where she only smoked on the lanai. But because the door was open occasionally to that lanai, that smoke came in the house and it bothered people.
Mhm.
And they walked out without even seeing it.
Yeah. And so, again, taking those initial steps to make sure that the home is presentable. Is there anything that you would recommend sellers do? Because again, this is something that I've heard and encountered even a couple of times, where we will get those emotional attachments, right? My home is better than everybody else's because I've lived in that home. What would you recommend that sellers do to, I guess, become comfortable with the fact that, their home needs to be competitively priced, that they can't add that additional cost for, the emotional significance of their property, let's say?
I haven't had any sellers recently talk about their value as opposed to, okay, this is what the market is saying.
Interesting. Why would you say that is?
I think that uh, what is happening in the market is being publicized more about how prices are going up, how there are multiple bids on property. They know that they have to be on their game at the starting gate. Um, and if things are on the market too long, people think there's something wrong.
And so, I mean, it sounds like the wider availability of information, right? Like you were just mentioning, knowing what a competitive offer or what a competitive value is in the market is really helping get away from that kind of self-invested or self-important, my home should be more expensive than these other people's homes, simply because, again, it was my home. And that's fantastic. I'm glad to hear that, because, again, depending on the area and the agent, and sometimes even just the prospect, right? We can hear, well, I know that the going rate for a market that's comparable in this area is, 275, but I don't want to sell for less than 350. So I'm glad that you're not encountering those kinds of circumstances.
Another thing is sellers have to depersonalize their homes. Put away those family pictures. Put away, get rid of all the clutter.
Mm-hmm. Why would you say that's important? I mean,
so the buyer can see themselves in the home.
Mm-hmm. And it's very hard to do when, again, you're seeing the remnants, or just, again, the evidence of someone else living in that home currently.
Right.
Now, Marge, we are getting towards the end of our time here. Before we do wrap up, do you have any last quick points or nuggets of wisdom that you would like to share with any new real estate agents, or any agents that maybe aren't seeing the success that they would like to?
I think first, newer agents, or even those of us who are not new, and at some point we need to figure out how to structure our business and have a business plan. And, maybe you talk to your broker and work that out with them. We're very blessed here to have a broker who's here, who's always teaching us, and so on. And then follow that plan, whether it be doing open houses, doing floor time, social media, drip campaigns, postcards, whatever.
Mm-hmm.
And you need to keep yourself accountable and on track.
And I mean, I would say that kind of ties back to kind of the overall theme of what I'm gathering from you, Marge, which would be, just like with the buyers, right, and having that honest inventory of what it is that you're looking for in your property. For a real estate agent, you need to have an honest inventory of what you're looking to accomplish with your business,
yes,
and then commit to, then find the building blocks and components that will help you reach that point. Then, exactly like you just said, commit to that. Make sure that you're the one that's driving that, and that you continue to move forward with that.
Yes.
Do you have any last tidbits or wisdom that you would want to share with new prospects, new home buyers that are entering the market, or any new sellers that might be entering the market as well in your area?
Talk to different agents until you find one that you click with. Do your research. Make sure they know what they're doing. If they are a new agent themselves, then find out what kind of mentorship they are getting from their broker or other agents.
Yeah. I mean, it definitely sounds like, and I mean, like we've mentioned, right? Knowledge definitely is power, especially when you're talking to prospective clients, or when you're trying to get prospective clients more excited in a I guess you would call a process that they're not necessarily familiar with.
Right.
And so, yeah, definitely. I completely agree with you. Again, it's something that we've seen from our best agents, and the ones that have the ability to mentor prospects long term, is having that knowledge to say, look, I want to make you as comfortable as possible, but we need to make sure that we communicate.
Yes.
Fantastic. Now, before we wrap up, do you have any last quick tidbits or anything else you'd like to share with us, Marge?
For newer agents or people thinking about becoming an agent, if real estate is not your passion, find something else.
Yeah. No, and I mean, it's a hard truth to swallow, right? But I mean, could you elaborate a little bit more?
if it's not your passion, you're not going to put your best effort into it, and your customers are going to suffer.
Yeah, I think that that's something that many agents really will discount, right? Because we get so many people that say, "Well, I'll work with anyone," right? But when you're working with your clients, your prospective clients, and you're trying to earn their business, right? You have to be able to address their needs specifically. You have to know what it is that they need that you have, and how to, again, kind of mold yourself to fit what it is that they need at the time, right?
Right. And in Florida, we have transaction brokers. We are not single agents, so we have customers and not clients.
Fantastic. And thank you so much, Marge, for joining us this morning. Again, my name is Alan. Thank you for joining us in today's episode of Meet the Agent. Don't forget to subscribe, follow us on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. And you can also check out our YouTube page at youtube.com/set schedule to see more episodes just like this one.